Let's start today's session on Azure Purview, which is basically an extension of the modern data platform. Few of you guys might have attended the previous session on the Lakehouse environment. If not, you could just go ahead and read it through. But yeah, before I begin this topic, I would just show you a normal scenario of a data lake or a lakehouse environment, what problems it has and how to solve that problems. Okay. So this is one of the lakehouse implementation which was done for a gaming major in the Australian region. So if you see this is the concept of the medallion architecture or the modern data platform which was spoken sometimes back. So you see you have 3 layers, the bronze layer, the silver layer and the gold layer, right. So this is how my data has evolved from the left hand of the spectrum, that is the data sources, to the right hand of the spectrum, which is basically the visualization layer or the ML layer or the machine layer learning layer, right. So let's go to the bronze layer and see what kind of data I have present in my system. So you see this, so this is nothing but this is the object store which was spoken about sometimes back. If not, if you guys were not present, so an object store is nothing but a generic storage where you will be able to store each and every kind of data, which is basically the big data with all the four V's of volume, velocity, veracity and the other properties. So here you see I do not have rows and column, rather my data is stored in a hierarchical format, which is as a which are stored as, I would say, normal folder structures, right. So let's go to one of the source system, which is like a local gaming authority. Inside that you see I have some data from a web API, I have some data from say an SQL server and things like that. So do you see the complexity in the Lakehouse environment which has been presented for this client, and how is this data completely populated over here? So say that these are the ingestion pipelines that has been developed which are hydrating my data lake over here, right. So you see close to whatever 87 pipelines and all, these are normal ADF pipelines. Most of ADF is nothing, the Azure Data Factory, which is an orchestration tool for extracting my data, loading it into my cloud layer of the Azure, right. So this is the foundation stone via which my lakehouse is being hydrated, and in the bronze layer you see I have say close to 10 to 15 data sources. Let's see what do I have in my silver layer. So you see there are some reduction in the size of the raw folder, because usually from the bronze layer to the silver layer we aggregate the data, clean the data, so it's a funnel, right. Then let's go and see to the gold layer. Okay. So you see we have gaming, and you see inside this we have a folder. So this is a different topic altogether, wherein this is a design of a lakehouse. It varies from organizations to organizations, lot of things goes into it, that is a different discussion. But seeing this data landscape of the client, say that I have, or say somebody, some data engineer in my team has developed this and he has left the organization, right. So what happens is there are lot of data in my data lake, but few of the research in Forrester says that close to 64% of the data in our lakehouse is still unused, or people will never be able to use the data which is present in their data landscape. Why? Because it's a dynamic team wherein people come, people go, lot of development takes behind the background, and people are not aware of what data is exactly present in my environment, right. Because if you see this, somebody new who comes into the organization and I say to him, get me the amount people have spent on say slot machines in my organization, then what happens is from these hierarchical structure I would not be able to understand where is it the point, is it a point of sales data, is it my LGA data, was it, what is it, I am not able to follow, right. But a lot of thing has gone behind designing this kind of a hierarchy, which was done with discussion from the business. So having seen this, the major challenge in the industry now is that everybody talks about the lakehouse architecture, everybody talks about the data lakes, everybody talks about big data. So people are moving on to the journey, and while moving towards that journey, people started realizing that now it has become a kind of a horse which does not have a control on the or the master does not have a control on it, because everybody comes in the organization, he implements or he does his own thing, right. It's very different, it becomes very difficult to control or manage the system, the data systems. So seeing this problem, lot of vendors in the market have come which are providing out of the box solutions for putting data governance into place. Okay. So people talked about, or people still talk about the big data landscape, lakehouse architecture and all, but this is one of the problems which people have started realizing, and vendors are seeing that if we are not going to control this at this point of time, then probably the whole lakehouse might collapse. And once the lakehouse collapse, the problem, what problem happens is, you might have a lot of PII data within your lakehouse, you might have GDPR compliance data which can be exposed to the outside world if proper governance is not put into picture. Until now, how these governance or how these principles are put into practice, that is via data stewards, and the task is very manual, wherein people will create an Excel repository of the data sets they have, people will create a glossary of the data they have, but what happens is that knowledge goes away once the person leaves most of the time, right. Once he is leaving the organization, probably he might not be in a mood to give a proper KT, and there might be a human error as well, wherein you might lose the Excel sheet, and it is a very daunting task. It takes a lot of time to say tag every data asset in your organization, then have a corresponding business glossary of the data. So this was a problem which industry was facing. So lot of new vendors came up with a lot of offerings. So we have offerings in terms of, let me go from the last slide and let me come to the front, so that, so we talked about the problem statement, right. Then let's talk about few of the vendors which I have been talking about. So we have vendors from like Colibra is one of the Gartner leaders over here. We have Alation, quite a lot of organizations are using it. Soda, we have SAP Master Data Governance. So all in all, data governance is an extension of the MDM, or in the data warehouse world, lot of people might be aware of the master data management, which people used to do in say Profici, or people used to do in Excel sheet and things like that. So few of the vendors realized these problems and they started working towards it. Now you might ask, then what's the difference? People have been doing it in Excel, then what's the difference these vendors are providing? So now imagine doing something manually, but something that's given out of the box, wherein you plug play the low code no code environment which people are talking about now, right. That I just want to bang on to my development environment, pre-packaged things are available, click, add, just see what's there for us as an offering, right. So these things are being automated rather than manual. So the problem statement is clear. Now let's talk about first what is data governance. Okay. So what is data governance? So basically in an organization, the way we store the data, process the data until the data is disposed, somebody should be aware of the whole cycle of the data or the data cycle which we mean over here. From the moment a data is ingested, how it is transformed, how it is stored, where it is stored, who has access to it until the data is finally disposed of, right. Imagine a single point of failure in any of this cycle of this chain of cycle. What happens is your organization might be exposed to data threats, and sometimes you need to pay a lot of fine for not adhering to the policies which has been laid down by the organizations, right. So, that is where a set of central governance principles which are applied to the data the moment data lands into our environment to until the data moves out of our environment, because until things are in our hand, we have to make sure and treat it like a baby who is not exploited by the outside world, because the moment it gets exploited, you are either prone to cyber security threats, you are or prone to a lot of fine by your organizations or by your clients, right. So, and now we saw the vendors, we saw the problem statements. What is an offering? There are few building blocks of the data governance. So, basically see, until your data is in a good quality, you would not be making best use of it, or say a garbage data will give you a garbage output itself, right. So, the first thing is users down the systems have to gain trust in the data. That is where the data quality frameworks and things like that come into picture, but that is a different topic. So, data ingestion, data quality, once data is in your ecosystem, you need to manage it very properly. Okay. Now, the market leader Microsoft as well realized that okay, vendors are working towards it, why not? Most of the modern data platform people are using Microsoft stuff. So, why are we far behind in this ecosystem? Let us bring something for the users to, rather than they going to an external vendor paying for license per user or per scan or whatever. Let us try to build something in house, and that is where Azure Purview came into picture. It was released, it was a general availability last September, it seems. Now, you could use it very well in your modern data platform, which will give you a bird's eye view of what kind of data is present, where the data is present, who all have access to it. You could create a complete data map, you could create a lineage, like how data is flowing from the source system to the destination system and things like that. So, you might ask then what does it provide to us? What advantages do you see in this? So, say that you have business users who are looking at your Power BI reports. So, until yesterday all things were working fine, but all of a sudden today the Power BI reports are taking a lot of time to load. So, definitely somewhere there might be a mistake, or somewhere some issue would have happened. Now, if we go back to our previous lakehouse environment and see, we have so many pipelines. Now, how do I understand which is the pipeline which is giving? All of a sudden your manager comes and he says to you that Anurag, there's an issue in this, it seems somewhere data pipeline is failing, can you look into it? I am new to the organization, I ask him, okay, so where are the pipelines that are loading the data? He would just redirect me to this, that go to the ingestion framework, see how many pipelines are there, and then now I keep scratching my head. It does not make much sense to me, right, that what are these pipelines? We have something alerting, we have say BHPB and things, it does not make much sense to me. So, how much ever hard I try to see, I would not be able to find out technically from my portal, right. But imagine if there is some product from Microsoft wherein it gives a view of these pipelines, say I have a analysis service pipeline. So, what exactly it does? Here I can go individually and search and try to relate, but what if I get everything at one place? Leave the life of a developer, it is okay. imagine in terms of now a new paradigm is in place. Lot of organizations are going for the chief data officer's role, wherein they hire somebody to take, we have all the CXO roles. Now there's a new role come up, which is the chief data officer's role. So what does the CEO want from him? He wants that, boss, if there is a breach in my data, I am liable to pay a lot of fine to the government. Let's make sure that you govern the data in a well protected manner. Now, how you do it, what tool you use it, it is up to you. But this is your KRA for the organization, that this is what you need to bring the organization into. So that is where Azure Purview comes into picture. So we talked about Azure Purview is nothing, it is a unified data governance offering from Azure, which is generally available now, and you could try to create data map, you could have data catalogs, you could add business glossaries. So things which you were doing manually before and you used to take ages to do, now this can be done at a click of a button, and most of the things are being done on automated way in a serverless fashion. So you can run the scan of your data set and see what are the assets within my data set, right. I will just quickly show a demo of that. So yes, this is the foundation of a modern data governance. You get an insight across the state, how my data is being used, who are the users who are using my data, like which functional, say visualization experts, are they actually looking at the data, or no, my data set which I have created for the business users are just being gone waste, right. So Azure Purview basically has 3 very basic components. Lot of things are in the preview version as well, and it's growing, it's an evolving tool now. So the very first thing is the data map. So what is a map? A data map is basically a hierarchy which explains us data 1 landed in our system, it is being used as in combination to create 2 tables in silver layer, 1 table in gold layer, and then finally exposed to the data marts for my Power BI reports. So I would say a graph of my data asset is what is a data map. Then you have data catalog. So say I have just given you a book on Azure Purview, right. So there would be 2 approaches for you to read the book. One approach would be, and that's a 100-page book. So what you would do, you would start reading the book from page number 1 to 100 and take two days to read the book. Or your team is in a hurry to get it implemented. They say that, boss, I want you to quickly implement a data catalog for me. So what you do, you will go to the index page of the book or the bibliography, you will see which all pages has catalog, and then what you do, you switch to those pages, right. So you reduce the task of reading 100 pages to just 4 or 5 pages where the concept of data catalog is there. You read very quickly and within 1 hour you implement the thing, right. So it is nothing but it is giving more information about the data which you have stored for easy usage across the organization. And then you have the data insights, which is basically what kind of PII data I have in my organization, which all tables have more PII data, which table are like they do not have the PII data or the GDPR compliant data at all. If at all we are putting any masking principles on that, sorry, how or which roles within the organization are able to access the data and things like that. So these are the 3 basic building blocks of our Azure Purview, the data governance from Microsoft. So you see data map, assets, lineage. Rather than going through the PPT, what I do is I would just take you through a simple demo, how quick it is to set up quickly set up a Purview account, scan your data set, register the data sets into the Azure Purview environment, and see the same things as an offering from Azure. Okay. So the very first thing is go to Azure. Okay. Yeah, you create a resource. Okay. So similar to any other creating any other this one, similar to creating any other services in Azure, you have the same thing. Go ahead, search for Purview over here. Yeah. So the very first thing is you need to create an Azure Purview account. It's very easy, not much complexity is involved. Click on create, okay. And the best thing about Azure is when I said that you can get a data map across your whole data landscape, you might have a question that is it just limited to the Azure resources or is it limited to anything outside of Azure. So it is across, it is multi-cloud, it is capable of handling on-premise data, it is capable of handling SaaS solutions. So just like most of you might be aware of the Azure Data Factory, their connectors are evolving every day. Similarly here as well, as of now it caters to AWS, Google Cloud, on-premise like Teradata, you have SAS solutions like Snowflake, you can scan data across multiple clouds, across multiple Azure tenants, across on-premise, across SAS systems. Okay. So that's why it is a complete uh, platform which gives you the ability to manage end-to-end data governance of your organization, right. So you go to the Azure portal, click on first thing, let's create a Purview account. Only then you would be able to map your governance needs into the Purview account. Okay. It will ask you for a subscription, it will ask you for a say, okay, you have a subscription, you just need to name a name your Purview account. So we would say, yeah, we will, and you see this is a completely serverless environment. You see one capacity unit is equal to 25 operations per second and 10 GB of metadata storage. So what happens when you scan your data? You scan your data assets. I had shown the in the previous examples I have shown the this I have shown you all the hierarchy of the data lake environment, right. Everything inside that is a say a daily file or a weekly file or a quarterly file, but what is there inside the data, business users will not usually go to Azure portal and then they will not go inside and see, okay, inside my LGA what do I have, say, okay, inside a web API data, what's there in my Delta folder. Okay, you see, it will not make sense to any of the users. It will basically make sense to either the data engineer or the people with engineering capabilities. And first of all, why should seniors or why should the VP or the business users be at all aware of what is there inside, right? At the end, they want to get a fully prepared buffet on their plate. Why should they get into these details, right? So you see, it will not make much sense to me over here, right? That is where you create a Purview account. You can say that what do you mean by a capacity unit? So capacity unit is nothing but it is just a serverless environment. Anything would require a processing at the end, right? You are scanning the data set, getting what say what assets or what rows, columns are there in my organization in a particular table or in a particular folder structure, so that I can tag it as, say, this is a PII data, this is a health data, this is a generic SSN data and things like that, right. So for scanning you need to run this automated governance tool on a background, right. That background is nothing but a capacity unit, which is in terms of, say, a virtual machine or something which is hidden behind the users, right. So this is the pricing thing. It was offered free until some time, but now, and the best part about this pricing is it is very elastic. You can start with, say, one capacity unit, go up to, say, 40, 50 capacity unit. If at all you are not using, automatic scale up and scale down will be there to save cost on that, right. It's a pretty new tool, people are getting used to it. So next, you see, now you have a storage account created. See, it's not allowing us to create a storage account, and you also have to create an event hub by default. If your subscription will not have event hub or storage account creation privileges, you will not be able to create the Purview account. Okay? Event hub, as of now, you can keep it disabled, but storage account is a prerequisite, very much prerequisite. So, it is creating itself. Why it is creating itself? Because see, it would need to store some log files and things like that, right. So, that will be managed internally, and it would be stored in the managed storage account of Azure Purview, right. So, next is what we can do, we can click on review and create. So, very easy, creation becomes very easy, just like any other normal tools. Select the subscription, select the resource groups, give your user friendly name. Storage account subscription should have permission to create a storage account or an event hub, that is it, you create it, right. So, once you create it, you will, so let the deployment go over, it will take some time to deploy. Once the deployment is done, what is the next step, right. So, once you have this deployment in place, you will have something of, say, so what did we create now? We created a Purview account in Azure, right, which is a unified governance portal for me. What we have to do over here? We need to start registering our data sets so that we can scan the whole data set and present a consolidated view of the data asset to my CXOs, correct. So, you see, I have one of the accounts already created, and I do have, say, SQL database as one of my assets. You have a Synapse workspace as one of my asset. My data is also present in the data lakehouse environment. So, these are few of the data sets for me, right. This as an example, this is a very small data platform, right. But imagine the complexity in the other data platform which was shown over here, right. You see, it has data coming from APIs, it has data coming from SAP system, it has data coming from multiple data sources, right. So, as an example, we will just go ahead with a small thing, but this is how you can scale it up for your complete on-premise, SaaS solutions and multi-cloud solutions. Okay. So, say that your Azure Purview account is created now, let us go and hit the Purview account button. Once you come over here, you see what do we have? We have Open Microsoft Purview governance portal, right. So, you see the governance portal is created now. Yes. So, what do you see? You, in the very first place, you see I have two sources of data for my lakehouse environment, and there are 33 assets on these two sources. So, just going to the previous real world example, wherein see you have multiple data sources over here, right. So, few data sources would be from web APIs, I might have data from SAP system, I might have data from, say, some Qualtrics web APIs and things like that, I might have data from some IoT sensors, right. So, here, but in our, so here basically two sources, because it is a very small lakehouse environment for the demo purpose. Two sources, what are the two sources? We just saw, right, SQL server and the normal ADLS Gen 2 environment, which was in this resource group. Within those two source systems, I have 33 assets and glossary items. Very quickly, what you need to do? You need to come to, say, you need to come to the data map over here, right. So, we have been talking about the data maps, right. See, now you might have a question that, Anurag, how have you divided your data map? Okay. So, the question is the same as how do you create your data lakehouse environment? How do you put the hierarchy of folders in place, right? How do you decide what is there in my bronze layer, silver layer? So, that kind of a business discussion goes on, wherein you can divide it based on region, like I want to keep okay. So you might have Asian region, all the data of Asia should be in Asian region collection, all the data of Middle East should be in Middle Eastern region collection. So this is up to you to decide, okay. There will be one root collection which is say your organization's name, you can have your organization's name as a root collection. Inside that you see you can divide it region wise, you can divide it say like here I have divided it based on say the business domain, sales data, marketing data, HR data, finance data, right, because my lakehouse will be hydrated with all the data for different business units. So it's up to you. This is a completely open discussion, how you need to put or give a structure to your lakehouse, same way you can give a structure to your collections as well. Now you see inside the collection, you see what have I done, what is present, sales data is all the data present in Azure SQL database, and marketing data is only present in Azure SQL Azure data lake environment, right. Now how do you create a collection? Very easy, go here, create collections, right, very simple, add, create a collection. How you create folders over here, right. You see you can create a collection, you can give collection admin. What did I talk sometimes back, that only not everybody should have access to this data governance thing, right, only the higher authority should be having access. So not that a developer should be given access, what will he usually do until required, otherwise let the CDO, let the CXOs have a overview of your data landscape. So you can add them as admins over here, otherwise no, whoever is not whoever does not have an access as a role based access control, he will not be able to access the collection, right. So you see you can create a collection like sales, marketing, legal, okay. Let us create a legal, we can add a collection or admin. Yeah. So you see you can create a collection, and see once I created a collection, where did this collection come? So you see a legal collection came, right. So now you want to say that okay, within legal I might have PII, non PII, you can go ahead, you can create those collections over here similar way, right. So add a collection, once you have over here, you see you can create the collections that way. Now the next thing is, after creating the collections, you need to start registering your data set, right, because until the data set is registered you would not be able to scan. That is where this window comes very handy. Very easy UI, you see you have Azure multiple, AWS I talked about, right, multi-cloud environment. See you will have Google Cloud as well, lot of things, you see how many connectors. So Salesforce, SAP, you sitting within Azure, you can scan and see what data is coming from Teradata, what data is coming from SAP HANA, what data is coming from Snowflake. The best thing is you can even scan your Power BI. In Power BI you have the data lineage functionalities and all, but say that would you like to give that access to the CDO to check your Power BI lineage and all, not required, right. Give him this access, he will be able to say see the similar kind of lineage over here. So see MongoDB, lot of connectors, and it's an evolving connector, okay. You see Snowflake is just in preview now, slowly Microsoft is working on it, and they would come up with all the connectors on the earth as possible, okay. So just see that you can connect to, now you can ask what is the difference between say Azure over here and Azure multiple. So see, when I have Azure multiple, you can add one subscription, you do not want to add a Cosmos DB separately, you do not want to add ADLS separately, you do not want to add SQL Server separately. Just click on Azure, okay, and you will see it will ask you to add a subscription and a resource group, and everything within the subscription will be done at one go. I do not want to do that because I want few things to be exposed, few things I do not want to be exposed. So you see, you just register the data, you can register an SQL Server or whatever, okay, Google BigQuery. So just say that I want to register an SQL Server, very simple, it will ask you the same connection details. What is your server name, IP, inside which collection? You see I want to put it under legal, sales, marketing, whatever, that's it, done. So this so adding the sources or registering the sources will make the data sources appear over here. Once the data source is here, what is the next thing? You have created the whole map of your lakehouse environment. The next thing is I need to scan the data and get it. So do you see a scan over here? You see a scan. So what will scan do? It will traverse through the whole plethora of data within the this data asset, and it will present a map to you that, boss, I have scanned 33 tables inside my SQL database, and I have got 330 columns inside my that, out of which 10 columns are PII, and see, everything is automated. You need not do anything. You just run your scan, Microsoft does everything for you. So what better way than this, right? Obviously, you can go ahead. Once it is generated, you can, because it might come up with few things which are not PII, but they will mark it as PII. You have the capability after the scan, go ahead, teach Purview that no, this you have marked it as a PII, this is not a PII for me. So next time when that scan happens, it will ignore that. Okay. So let's come and see the data map over here. You see, I saw the data map and classification, yeah, scan rule set. So you see here, you see they have all the scan rules which is by default. I am not doing it. Scan rules is already there. So once I scan a new system, new scan rules. Okay, you can even add new scans over here. For Azure Blob, what I need to do, set a scan rule that you can put all regular expressions and things like that. Everything is can be done over here. By default, Microsoft has given some templates based on industry standards, right? To start with, you can go ahead and do that. You can use the same things. Okay. Now, yes, you see, I have run 4 scans. What is the advantage of scan? You will say that why do I need to run a scan regularly, or say every day I need to run a scan, or every fortnight or every week I need to, because today I just have 10 sources of 10 tables. Probably every week few more tables are being added. So we never want to be stale in, because you are presenting is somebody to a very higher level. So he goes ahead and he says on the wider forum that as of now we are ingesting data from 4 data sources, but by the time when he presents it, 2 other data sources have already come. So that should not be the case, right? He should always, so probably based on your business needs, you can schedule the scans on daily basis, weekly basis, however you want. Okay. So that's the advantage of a scan. It will get all the assets over here, right? So you see, we can browse the assets, everything we can browse over here. Now let's go to the glossary and see. So you see, just say, imagine that I have not done anything on this. I just selected everything default and see what all things it has given to me. See, there is something called adjusted meeting hours in my this one. There is something called attributes. There is something called calendar fragmentation, and everything you see has a definition attached with it. There are few things which Microsoft was not able to understand, because see, everything cannot be out of the box, everything. So that is why what happens is they have given an edit button over here. You do an edit and say that no, see definition, a person who was invited and attended the meeting. So you see, this has become so easy. Now somebody new comes in your organization, okay, some new VP or somebody has come, he wants to see, hey, I want to see which are the sales data. You come over here, click on sales, okay. So okay, not sales, attendance, okay. You see, I would come to know that okay, we have so many attendance data sets over here, okay, where it is work. So all these things are very pretty and very quickly available over here, okay. So scan rules and classifications, yeah, okay. So this is just a quick view which I wanted to present. So I hope with this you guys would be able to start your journey on the Azure Purview environment and just give a try. Just start with everything default. If at all you guys have a lakehouse environment, try to implement it. It would be a good starting point for you guys to get insight into these things. So with this I will end the session. Thanks guys for your time.